Okay, everyone, Michael Quinn Sullivan here at the Texas Scorecard stage. Appreciate you joining us for a few minutes, visiting with my friend Corey DeAngelis, who has been causing a minor bit of trouble around the country for the past couple of years, pushing for the radical idea that parents should be in charge of their kids' education. Corey, you've written a great book. I want to talk about that in a second. But why is it met with such hostility? The idea that moms and dads should be more involved in their kids' education.
It strikes at the root of the problem. The radical left has figured out that they don't even have to have their own kids anymore, and they can still shape the direction of the country. How? Well, they've infiltrated the government-run school system, and they control the minds of other people's children for 13 years of their lives, for 7 hours a day, and we can't win this war just by having more kids as libertarians and conservatives and anti-government independents. The left has figured out that, well, they can have millions of children, 50 million kids, go through this system where they can teach them that big government is the solution to all of their problems. And so this strikes at the root. It makes them freak out. They fight this harder than anything else because they want the monopoly on the money associated with educating your kids, but more importantly, they want to keep the monopoly on the minds of other people's children. But we're winning on this issue finally. We're winning so much, I'm almost getting tired of winning. Not yet. We're almost done in Texas.
Almost, yeah.
We're winning a lot of primaries. On Super Tuesday, it was a political earthquake. 10 of the 13 candidates that we supported by my organization or who we targeted either lost their seats outright on Super Tuesday or they were forced into runoffs, most of them into second place. So that translated to a 77% victory rate, and incumbents usually win 95% of the time. So we've inverted that trend. And if you want to take Ted Cruz's advice, on the back he says you can ruin Randy Weingarten's day by reading this book.
Okay, so I want to talk about the book a little bit. When I first heard you were writing a book about school choice, I thought, oh, that'll be interesting. 7 people will read it, and they will all be really excited about it. And then we see the earthquake happening. Think, well, there'll be more folks interested. It's now on the national bestseller list. Corey, did you ever think that was this topic would be floating up there with all the other stuff?
Yeah, I mean, imagine this, a school choice book as a national bestseller in 1 week. I mean, Trump's endorsement helped last week. He actually put out on Truth Social an endorsement of the book. I think he said something like Corey DeAngelis is a fighter for parental rights, and he also supported the book explicitly as well. I dedicated the book to Randy Weingarten and the teachers unions for overplaying their hand and awakening a sleeping giant. They fought to keep the schools closed, but that inadvertently has done more to advance school choice and homeschooling than anyone could have ever imagined. So
yeah.
I sent her a book. My handwriting.
I'm sure she was appreciative.
She didn't. But today I tweeted out that the Chicago Teachers Union boss, who called school reopenings sexist, racist, and misogynistic, they actually had a tweet they deleted claiming that. They had a board member vacationing in Puerto Rico while railing against going back to work. But the teachers union boss out there, Stacey Davis Gates, she called school choice racist last year, and this year we found out she sent her own kid to private school. Total hypocrite, but she sent the book back to me. Maybe it was above their reading level, it just goes to show you, one Wisconsin teachers union board member actually called to burn the book. The same people calling us the book banners. It's Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. They accuse everybody else of what they are doing themselves.
So for 20, 25 years in Texas, we have had a lot of talk about school choice, and maybe a couple little timid advances towards school choice, but a lot of talk. The past 2 years, past 4 years has seen the talk turn to action. To what do you attribute that?
Well, it is because of the school closures and families getting to see what was happening in the classroom. Through remote learning, which, look, we really just should have called it remotely learning. There wasn't a lot of learning going on. Families got to see that the schools were focusing more on indoctrination than education. And look, Vodi Bakum said it best. We cannot continue to send our children to Caesar for their education and be surprised when they come home as Romans. Well, the good news is parents are not surprised anymore. They become a political juggernaut to be reckoned with. And for far too long in K through 12 education, the only special interest represented the employees, the adults in the system. But now the kids have a union of their own, and they're called parents, and they're holding politicians accountable at the ballot box. They tried to go back at the school board meetings. Guess what happened? They had their mics cut off. They were labeled as domestic terrorists for having the audacity to want to have a say in their kids' education, and that only backfired. They tried to bully and silence parents into submission, but that only emboldened families to push back even harder. Look at what happened in Virginia with Mr. Terry. I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach. McAuliffe, that backfired for him in a state that apparently went 10 points to Biden the year before. Glenn Youngkin, the Republican, won on the issue of education by 6 points with those voters. That was the number 2 issue in that election. And he really showed the GOP the blueprint for political success, because school choice, parental rights, and education it really isn't a partisan issue, but the Republican primary voters in particular are highly supportive of having the money follow the child. Trump just endorsed the book last week. It's now a national bestseller. And again, it's the union's own fault. They've stepped in it over and over and over again. A couple of years ago, I actually woke up to what I thought was a Babylon Bee headline. You know, Babylon Bee is satire. Sometimes these days you can't tell the difference between reality and satire. But I thought it was a Babylon Bee headline. It wasn't. It wasn't a nightmare either. I woke up to a tweet by Randy Weingarten that said that she was in Ukraine at the front lines to assess the situation. What the hell was the teachers union boss doing in Ukraine? I mean, what was she going to do? Make the war go remote like she did with our schools? That might have actually helped. But haven't the Ukrainian kids already had it bad enough? She already ruined our schools. So look, they've just been so politicized. They're not focusing on the basics. They're focusing more on the LGBTs than the ABCs, and we shouldn't be surprised when kids aren't learning how to read, write, or do math proficiently.
So, you know, there's this phrase, Victor Hugo quote that the conservative movement likes to use a lot, which goes like this: there's nothing so powerful as a good idea whose time has come. Well, my experience school choice has been good ideas die very easily, and usually they die from apathy. Usually they die from kind of the presumption that, oh, well, it's a good idea, so of course it's going to pass. How do we combat going into 2025 in Texas with all the election results? You know, there's that sense of, oh, fait accompli, school choice happens. How do we fight that?
I mean, it looks like we're going to have the votes next year, and look, it's almost a blessing in disguise. And this happened in Iowa too. And we've seen this movie before. In 2022, Governor Reynolds pushed school choice, and it passed through the Senate easily. Only one Republican defection moved over to the Republican-controlled House, where it went to die, kind of like what happened in Texas. Well, guess what? They got a new House in Iowa. The primary voters were not happy about it. They put new people into office. They primaried a bunch of the rhinos who voted against their own party platform issue with all the Democrats. And guess what? They got full-throated school choice in 2023. The running joke in Iowa is that the Democrats should have voted for the pared-down version from 2022 because they came back, got a new House, and unleashed education freedom for all in the state of Iowa. We're seeing that happen right before our eyes in the Lone Star State, in my home state. I actually live here in San Antonio. It's great. I grew up here as well. Despite what Gina Hinojosa said in the public education.
The out-of-stater who grew up in Texas.
She said I was the out-of-stater. I'm not from here. And Twitter, thank God for Elon Musk. He brought in community notes. She got hit with a couple community notes that said, actually, Corey did grow up in Texas. He actually went to public schools in Texas. So if you get a signed copy of my book, I apologize for the handwriting. It's horrible. But hey, I went to government schools. You can't really blame me.
Okay, so what is the one or two most important things parents can do to push school choice starting now through the end of the next legislative session, besides, of course, buy a copy of the Parent Revolution?
Look, the delegates at this convention should all make school choice the #1 priority. There are other things that are important too, but this strikes at the root of the problem. Even if you don't have kids in the system, even if you don't have grandkids in the system, the left is using the school system to churn out Democrat voters in the future who are going to be more likely to vote to take away your rights in the future. They're going to vote to increase your taxes in the future. So this is the #1 priority. It ought to be if you want to fight against socialist creep in our country, the fight is too important to cede to the left. And look, might be why Donald Trump endorsed the book. This might be why Ted Cruz says you can ruin Randy Weingarten's day by reading this book. But the left reels and they fight as hard as possible. They go kicking and screaming against this. That should tell you something. We have all the right enemies, and it's because they don't want to have their control slip through their fingers. They've been able to raise our kids for us. That's a problem. We've sent our kids to Caesar. We've been surprised they've come back as Romans, but we're not surprised anymore. We need to make that number one priority, school choice, and we'll have all of the other priorities follow as well. We got to strike at the root of the problem. So look, you can call your legislators as well and hold them accountable. Take this position to the ballot box too, and we're doing that right now. May 28th is a big deal. I think we're going to win a bunch of those seats, and look, the writing has been on the wall for a long time. We've had polls, even using the union word that they like, voucher, even though this is an education savings account. Even when they use the biased word of voucher, we've found time after time again, a majority of Texans, specifically Republicans, support even vouchers. According to University of Houston, Texas Tribune of all places reported this as well. You look at University of Texas Austin, UT Tyler. We've had so much information. They should have known, but some people have been so drunk on power for so long, they thought that they were untouchable. Well, guess what? They've awakened a sleeping giant. Parents are pissed. They're not taking it anymore.
Outstanding. All right. So I encourage you to grab a copy of The Parent Revolution. If they're here at the convention, they can grab you and get you to sign it. And Corey, thanks for your time. Appreciate you being with us.
Thanks for having me.